Hey, and welcome to another episode of Dr. Bertetta's Beginner Guitar Theory. I'm over here once again at the living room, Austin, with my generous host, Sean. Just as a shout out to the living room, if you haven't been over to the Living Room Austin Facebook page to see what kind of exciting things are going on in this growing community, check us out. Every Wednesday we do a live jam session on Facebook through Facebook Live, and it's always pretty fun. We get a number of musicians of various stripes and musical persuasions over here, and we just jam. So it's a good time. So the last several episodes here, we've been talking about chords, and the last time we looked at chord functions and harmonic tendency. That is, we looked at the way we can think of chords in terms of their function, or I like to think of them as a family, and their tendency to move in certain directions or towards certain chords in this musical movement from stability to building, rising tension, back home to stability. So, as far as our chords are concerned, getting to thinking about making music with last time's episode, but we only have learned our chords that consist of 3 notes. No matter how many strings you're playing, whether it's all 6 or even just 3 strings, the chords we focused on consist of 3 notes. All right, and so this term here, triad, refers to those types of chords. Okay, and so I think it was on the first lesson about chords, maybe it was even earlier, we talked about how chords are constructed, all right? And so the chords, as far as we came to understand them, these triads, consisting of 3 notes, are built by stacking thirds. Okay, what that means, if we think of the scale, and we're only thinking, 3 notes per chord, we start with 1 note, let's say C, we skip over a note, and we have the third, all right? So E. Then we skip over another note, and we come to G. So we have the G note, and so the C chord is spelled C-E-G. And the same thing would apply here, all right? D, I skip over the D, and skip over the E, come to F, skip over the G, come to A, and I have my D minor chord. And so we have spent, a little bit of time here and there, some places more than others, where, I've talked about the difference between a major third and a minor third, all right? And that difference is the determining factor in whether a chord is major or minor. I forgot my little diminished symbol here. And if you have watched a few of these videos, I usually pay some sort of homage to the diminished chord. Today we're gonna, not talking much about it. Today, I'm gonna spend a little bit more time with it. So that is the difference between a major and a minor chord. Its third note. Is the interval from relative to the root, is it a major third or a minor third? So in thinking of chords as stacked triads, we can look at them this way as well. So a major chord, so we'll have 2 stacked triads, all right, between the 3 notes. So a major chord, the 1, the 4, and the 5, as we've come to see them, those are built by a major third. So C to E is a major third, right? Hopefully you know that by now. And then E to G, that's a minor third. How do you know that? How do I know that? I know that by the shapes, all right, of the 1 note relative to its next note, whether it's a minor third or major third. So if you don't know those, go back to, say, episode 2, episode 4, and you'll find that information out. A minor chord is the reverse, okay? It is a minor third followed by a major third. So in the case of, say, D, 5th fret, 5th string, I have an F note. Okay, that's a minor third. And then my 5th note is A. F to A is a major third. So minor third, major third. And so here's where the diminished chord gets different and stands out as unique, and is also the kind of the basis for it to become even weirder to some extent or another. Honestly, when I first started working with diminished chords and derivatives of that, I was kind of like, ooh, those are kind of weird. But once I got to using them, I really like them. And again, I've said we'll have a whole lesson or two on the diminished chords later down the line. And you know, not only are they cool sounding, but they're very versatile. So a diminished chord consists of a stacked third on top of a stacked third. So, excuse me, minor thirds stacked on minor thirds. So B, okay, that's the root here in, of course, the key of C. B is my root for the diminished. D, again, still 5th fret, 5th string, and then the stretch, the F on the 4th string, 3rd fret. So you get a sense of how, you know, that sounds. Now, when you have to stretch your fingers like that, it can be kind of awkward, all right? So I don't know how many people who use the diminished chord are going to use that sort of a fingering, but there's a lot of other easier fingerings to do. Usually those are ones from the 4th, 3rd, and 2nd string, or the 3rd, 2nd, and 1st string. So for example, like, there's the same chord, but much easier to play than that. So, but those minor thirds are what make the diminished chord unique. All right. So what we're talking about today are what are called 7th chords. Okay, widely used in all sorts of music. All right, and basically all a 7th chord is, it's the stacking of another third on top of the first two stacked thirds. Okay. Now, when I began, beginning to read and try to learn as much as I could about music theory, and when I got, back into playing guitar after some time off, I had no idea, I knew what 7th chords were, and I knew the difference between, say, what's called a dominant 7 and, say, a major 7. I knew how to play that, but I didn't really know what that meant, all right? Or, then if you continue this process of just stacking thirds on one another and maybe even changing a quality, you're going to get things like, G7 flat 13. Like, what the hell does that mean? So this is the next step into learning what those things mean. And, to be honest, most guitar players aren't going to get into, at least, music, rock and roll or blues, or, if you play that kind of stuff, you tend to not use those chords with, they're called extensions, more extensions, much more than the 7th. Sometimes you get one more, but, those other chords with the higher numbers aren't used as much in more mainstream kind of music, all right? I don't know, though. I don't know her music very well, but maybe Hilary Duff throws in, an A minor 11 or something like that from time to time. Who knows? I don't even know if she would know. So, back to the point. When we take a triad and add another note, by adding another third, we get to 7th chords, okay? So, I'm going to show you how it works first, and then I'll show you them on the guitar. Actually, I think it'd probably be best to do that as well, for a couple examples anyway. So, if I stack, so I have the C chord, and I want to make that a 7th, all right? I'm just going to stack another third onto the G note. All right, so how do I find that? How do I know what that is? All right, well, you can use the, if you don't know it already, you can use the method that you've learned on these videos. So start with G, all right? I know it's going to be so in this case, it's going to be a major third. Forgot to mention this. So when you add a seventh to a major chord, remember major is major third, minor third, you're going to add a major third, all right? So that's the formula. So I start on G, give me my major seventh, or my next major third, and I have a B. So the note is going to be B. Let's look at a minor chord. So we know a minor chord is a minor third plus a major third. D to F is the minor, F to A is the major. Then we're going to add another minor third in this case. All right? So, again, if you don't know it, how can you figure it out? That trusty old shape, it's a C. Okay? So we see a pattern beginning to emerge in a few different ways. Okay? On the one hand, just as you go, from the C chord to the B, the first scale degree or the first chord tone, we just go C, D, E, F, G, the third E, F, G. So you can see that beginning to happen here too, right? B, C. But we can also look at it, and I think probably a better way to look at it than just that linear is to see how it relates to the chord, yes? So if we think about the C major scale, C, D, E, F, G, A, B, I'm adding one more triad. It's the next note down in the scale, yeah? So B is the next note down from C. C is the next note down from D, all right? What is the next note down from E? Hopefully you said D. So again, C, B, C, D. But again, thinking of it in relationship to the chord, I think is going to be better for your learning. How about F? What's the difference there? Or what's the next note there? An E, right? E is one note lower than F. So we continue. And we have the diminished. Come back to the diminished just for a moment. When you add a seventh to a diminished chord, actually there's like two different ways you can add a seventh. We're going to stick with just one way right now, all right? When you add a seventh to a diminished chord, that chord becomes known as a minor 7 flat 5, okay? So again, we return to the kind of the building blocks of the basic diminished chord, the two minor thirds together, and then we stack a major third on top of those, okay? Just for fun, real quick, the other way to add a seventh to a diminished chord, it becomes known as diminished 7. That's just one way of writing it. Instead of a minor third, it would be three stacked minor thirds on top of one another. So minor 7 flat 5 or diminished 7th. So let's look at some of these chords and their shapes for on the guitar, and so we can begin to apply them. All right, and so there are many different shapes for you to play seventh chords. There's going to be more, say, permutations of seventh chords, more ways to play them on the guitar than there would be your basic triads, because you have more notes to work with. So I'm just going to show you right now a couple of the ways to play. I'll relate them back to that caged system we talked about last time, which kind of basic shape they relate to, okay? But again, there's a lot of different other ways you can play these chords. And on the Facebook page associated with this, Dr. Bertetta's blah 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 on Facebook, I'm going to put the chord diagrams up there for you, and I'll probably throw in some of the voicings that I don't show you here, just so you have a little bit more variety. So we're going to start with the C. All right. So put this down. One more thing I forgot to tell you. When you add a seventh chord or a seventh to the chord, that's going to dictate what, on the one hand, what type of seventh it is. So just like there were two different types of thirds, there are two different types of seventh. All right, and that determines what these chords are called. So we've already seen you got a 7, B minor 7 flat 5, or the diminished 7. So the C, when you add a 7 to it, becomes known as a C major 7. All right, and that's very important, that major 7, in contrast to the ones that I'm going to show you later, or that we'll see right now. So the way that's often written, say in books, it could be like C maj 7, or oftentimes it'll just be like a triangle after the C, or whatever the chord is. So C major 7. Then D minor becomes D minor 7. E minor becomes E minor 7. F is another case where it's a major 7. And then G is typically written just like that, or this type of seventh chord, a G7, which is short for dominant 7, which I'm just shortening to Dom 7. So that's your dominant chord. All right, and we looked at that family of chords last time. The principal dominant chord in in the system is the 5 chord, particularly the 5/7. So adding these notes is making the chord that much more active. All right, so you add a 7th to the 5 chord, and that activates it big time, and it wants to move. It builds that tension. Okay, so and we'll look at examples of that. And so the A, well, this should be an A minor, okay, because A is a minor chord. That's A M7. Okay. Sometimes you'll see instead of the M, you just might see a D minus 7, D minor 7, or you just might see it just D minus, and that means D minor. The minus means minor. So the difference between, if we look at the major chords here, C, F, and G, all right, 2 of them have major 7s. One of them has what's called the dominant 7th, or more strictly speaking to our idea of intervals, it's a flat 7. Okay, so the difference between a dominant 7 and a major 7, as far as the 7th is concerned, is 1 fret. Okay, and it makes all the difference in the world. So here's why. If we think of the C major 7 chord, the relationship between C and B, even though we'll have to find them on the fretboard differently, it's only 1 fret, right? It's a half step that divides them. The F major 7, it's a half step between the F and the E. The dominant 7 is a full step between the 1 and the 7. All right? G to F is a whole step, 2 frets. So how can I learn how to find these intervals and play these chords? So we'll start with the interval aspect first. So I'm going to start with C. Okay, and if you remember our discussion of intervals way back when, first episode, second episode, I can find another C by skipping 1 string, going to the next down, and playing the note, the fret two frets up. So those are both C's. Okay, that's the octave. That's the 1 and the 8. So we know that only a half step separates the 1 from the 7. So if I just bring this C note down 1 fret, that's a major 7th interval. Okay, so that would apply to the 1 and the 4 chords. Now, if I want to find the dominant 7, I start with that major 7, where I have the root here. It's 2 steps down from the root, or 1 step down, a half step down from the major 7. So I may have misspoke there. 1 whole step from the root, a half step from the 7. All right? So that interval or that sound is going to apply to the dominant 7 chords. So let's just see, or let's just hear what they sound like first. So this is that's an example of a C, say C major without the 7th. That's a C major 7. So what did I do there? All I did was I lifted my index finger up, because that was on C. I already got C here. I lift that up. What do I have? A B, right? So that's the C shape, C major 7 chord. So I have C, E, G, 3rd string open, B, 2nd string open, and then I can play the open 1st string because that's an E as well. All right. So there's some tension there, but there's also kind of a feeling of an you know. It could be used as a chord to build tension, or it could be, relaxed and dreamy. Put diminished chords or major 7th chords together. Very relaxing, yeah? All right. So that would apply, again, these major 7 apply to the 1 and 4. So that's the C shape, right? Another easy way to play it is to use that A shape that you learned last week, or two episodes ago. A shape bar chord. And again, here's my C, right? 3rd string, 5th fret. Well, instead of barring with the my index finger, I'm going to make kind of a triangle shape on the strings 4, 3, and 2. So still my root is C. 4th string, 5th fret, that's my G, my 5. Now the difference between this and this is my middle finger. All right, so that's the major 7, that's a B. And then here I have my E, so my pinky is on the 2nd string, 5th fret. And then with my bar down across the 1st string, I have a G. So okay. So we're gonna start with those two shapes for the major the major 7s. All right, and again on the Facebook page, I'll put some other more of the basic kind of shapes. So let's move to the dominant chord, okay? The 5 chord. So in our case here, G. There's 3 kind of easy shapes to use. We'll have the E shape, the C shape, and the A shape, all right? E shape, yeah, E shape, C shape, A shape. So let's start with the E shape. Okay, so we learned our E shape 2 episodes ago, too. If you don't know these, again, you can look back on those episodes on chords, or just look them up. So this is a G chord, right? Using the E shape. Here's my E chord. Move that up. Using my bar on the G. It's G. Now this one's real simple. All right, so right here, all the notes I'm playing are G, B, and D. In the E shape, all you do is lift your pinky off. Okay? What have I done there? Well, why do I lift my pinky off? Because that's just another G. All right, I'm playing that up here. So I lift that up. What do I have? This bar is 2 frets below, right? A whole step. So as we saw, that's the interval, right? That's the shape for that 7th interval. So I got that covered when I just lift my pinky up, okay? Rock and roll and the blues, it's very much built on, this is one of the cornerstones of that music, is that dominant 7, the 5 chord. Okay, so that's the E shape. C shape, again, I'm gonna, I guess I should play it on G. Okay, I'm going to make my C shape with my ring finger, 5th string, 8th fret, so that's the root, that's G. Okay, middle finger is 7th fret, 4th string, that's the major 3rd. Okay, so that's the B. Then my first finger is going to skip a string, and I'm going to play another G on the 2nd string, 8th fret. So I have 10, 9, and 8. So now I'm going to take my pinky and put on the 4th string, 10th fret. So what do I have here? I have that same shape, right? Here's my G. Here's my 7 shape, my dominant 7 shape, or my minor 7, my flat 7 shape. So that's a 7 chord. It's missing the 5, but that's okay. It's missing the D. There's no D here, but that's okay. All right. The 1, the 3, and the 7 are going to be the most important. Why that? Because the 3 is determining this is a major chord, and the 7 is there to say it's a 7 chord. So this would be G in the triad, the C-shaped triad. We learned that two weeks ago, 2 episodes ago. There's my 7th chord. So what blues does a lot is turns, for example, in rock and roll and stuff, is basically, we looked at the chord progression last time, the idea of chord progressions, the 1, 4, 5. And what blues does a lot is just takes the 1, the 4, and the 5 and turns those into this dominant 7 chord. So technically it's not, say, diatonic, but this is, again, one of the reasons why breaking the rules is important, right? Because if they didn't break those rules, then there would be no jazz, there'd be no blues, there'd be no rock. So if we just say, look at, say, a blues in A. Okay, so now we're going to, this is just easy to show for, fretboard purposes, but this will be familiar, okay? So we'll do it in A. So the A is the 1, the 4 is the D, 7, and the 5 is the E. And I'll show you the shape. I'll show you another shape of how to use the 7th chord. So you just get the point real quick. Fundamental to the blues sound, right? Okay. That's because they're using 7th chords for the 1, the 4, and the 5. Another way to make the dominant 7, so we got the E form, we got the C form. Next one is the A form. Okay, so again, I'm going to use the A shape to play my G chord with its root on the 5th string, 10th fret. And I'm borrowing that, just like I did with the C major 7. Okay, but instead of putting my middle finger down, I'm going to just take it off. And I'm using my index finger on the root, my ring finger, 4th string, 12th fret. That's a D. So that's my 5. 3rd string, I have, it's open through my these 2 strings. And so that's the F. So the F. And then down here I have my B, which is my 3rd. And then 1st string I have a D, 10th fret. Again, another 5th. So let's hear all those against each other. So E shape, C shape, A shape. Subtle differences in the way they sound, but again, they all sound, very similar at the same time. And those differences are really because of where the intervals sit in relationship to one another. So from the root here, in this voicing, I have the 3rd is the first interval you hear, all right? Whereas this, it's the 5th that you hear. So the intervals are jumbled up depending upon where you're putting your fingers and how you're holding the chord. Again, there's a lot of other options that we'll get to in the future. So C major, 7, 1 chord, F major, 7, the 4 chord, 5 chord is the dominant 7. Okay, and that same principle about the dominant 7, about it, the 7th being a flat 7, you know, a whole step from the root, that's going to also apply to your minor chords. All right, D minor 7, E minor 7, A minor 7. So again, the dominant 7 is defined. The 7th is, you know, the 7th is a whole step away from the tonic or the root. And you have the same here. G is a whole step from A, D is a whole step from E, C is a whole step from D. Okay, so these are minor chords. So let's take the minor shapes that we learned 2 episodes ago and see how we can make some 7ths. Okay, and we're just going to focus on 2 today. So let's start with my 6th chord. Okay, just again for purposes, visual purposes, I'm using the E minor shape. So we remember from our studies on chords and basic chord shapes, this is the E minor shape. So now I'm going to make an A minor. Okay, so index finger bars the 5th fret, and my ring and my pinky are on the 7th fret, 5th string and 4th string. Okay, so that's an A minor chord. Now this is very easy. All I got to do is lift up my pinky. And again, it works on the same principle. This is an A. Same note. So I lift it up. I'm down to the 5th fret. I got a whole step removed. I have an A minor 7. Okay. Let's take the A minor. Now we'll be using the A minor shape, or the A, which is, you know, related to the A major shape. But we learned about the A minor when we first began looking at chords, the diatonic chords. So we'll just stick with that. We can a good starting place. So again, open 5th string, 4th string and 3rd string respectively, 2nd fret. 2nd string is 1st fret. 5th string is open. So all I got to do here is, again, it's a case of lifting a finger up. Excuse me. Lift my my ring finger up, and I go from the A to the G. A minor 7. A minor. A minor 7. Okay. So E shape or E minor shape. Here's your A minor. Lift up that pinky. A minor 7. A minor 7. Okay. So just like I suggested, you know, practicing you know, your chord shapes with the major chord, with the triads, whether they were major or minor, just learning, you know, all the different ways that you can make those chords. Do the same with these 7th chords, all right? Major 7, you know, we only learned a couple, right? C major, C major. Again, you're gonna, when we get into like key changes and things, you're gonna be able to play a D minor 7 anywhere on the neck if that's what the key calls for, if that's just what you feel like playing. It'll just be the same sort of principle. C major 7, move it up, D major 7, right? Simple stuff. A minor 7, G minor 7. But learn where you can play these different minors, these different minor 7s across the fretboard. Then, you know, if you want to get adventurous, use that same system that was here on the whiteboard last time, you know, the harmonic sort of tendencies of those chords. And instead of doing triads, do 7th chords. So, again, just to use the key of A, for example, 1, 4, 5. We saw that's a very common progression, right? And again, it's standard of the blues. 1. So I can do the D minor this way. E minor, E7, A7, and D7. Play around with putting those different types of chords together. So maybe I want to do, so going back to C, F, F major 7. So the C major 7 shape here, but just with the root on the F and my first finger down on the bar. So maybe the F major 7, that's a tonic, or that's a subdominant chord. Then I go, again, following the rules, I go to F major 7, G7, G dominant 7, and then where's my closest C? So again, it's, it's heightening the tension, the emotional quality of the chords. Every time you're adding something or subtracting something or, changing something in a chord, it's going to affect sort of the emotional capacity. So one good practice, actually, I just sort of think of it, as you play chords and new chords and trying out different chords, maybe have a notebook of, what is your feeling, that you experience playing a certain type of chord? Is a major 7 relaxing to you? Does it remind you of just chilling out on the beach? Whatever. Maybe it reminds you of scary ass clowns. I don't know. But make a notebook of that. And so especially if you're a singer-songwriter, when you have, there's emotional content to your lyrics, you might think of, writing, using the chord that has the corresponding emotion. So again, practice those, the major 7s, put them with, or do 7s in general, put them with triads. So you have a C, just basic old boring C, E minor 7, G, D minor 7 is a different voice, and we'll get back to G. So you're going to play around with different combinations of using just the basic triads or the 7th chords. Okay? So, as always, keep on watching, keep on learning, keep on rocking.